Without objection, we will substitute the prayer, pledge, and other opening procedures for those items in the 6th extraordinary session. Motions and resolutions. Mr. Calderon, you are recognized.
Madam Speaker, I request unanimous consent to take up AB 10 without reference to file for the purpose of second reading.
Without objection.
Do we need to read it?
Clerk will read. Clerk will read the resolution.
Resolved that Assembly Bill Number 10 presents a case of urgency as that term is used in Article 4, Section 8B of the Constitution, and the provision of that section requiring that the bill be read on 3 separate days in each House is hereby dispensed with, and it is ordered that the bill be placed upon its passage and considered engrossed.
So now what do you want to say? Mr. Calderon.
Can we pass temporarily on this?
Without objection. Mr. Calderon.
Yes, Madam Speaker, there is a resolution at the desk relative to AB 10 to dispense with Article 4, Section 8B of the Constitution, which requires 3 separate readings of bills on 3 separate days. I ask that we move to the resolution now.
Mr. DeVore.
Given that it's October 8th, a number of weeks past the sine die deadline of August 31st, and given that this is not a measure requiring anything to do with urgency or the budget, I was just curious as to how this could be coded a majority vote bill when my reading of the state constitution is that this should be a 2/3 vote bill, because I thought nothing but urgency or budget bills were in fact germane this late in the process.
That restriction is only in the regular session, and signing die is November 30th.
Mr. DeVore, the issue that you raised only applies to the regular session, not the special session. Okay, so this resolution requires 54 votes for passage. The clerk will read the resolution. He read the resolution. Okay, we will open the roll on the resolution for AB 10. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. This is to dispense on the 3 readings. This is a procedural motion to dispense with the 3 separate readings of the bills on 3 separate days. Mr. Calderon's asking for an aye vote. This resolution requires 54 votes. Members, this is a procedural motion. Procedural motion. Members, this is a procedural motion. Okay. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 54, noes 13. The resolution is adopted.
Hang on.
Mr. Calderon.
Madam Speaker, I request unanimous consent to allow Mr. Blumenfield to take up AB 10 without reference to file for purpose of third reading today.
Without objection? Clerk will read AB 10.
Assembly Bill 10 by Assemblymember Blumenfield, an act relating to service and volunteering.
Mr. Blumenfield.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this bill establishes a new Secretary of Volunteerism position in the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. It's a priority of First Lady Maria Shriver. There is no question that part of California's greatness comes from its spirit of activism and volunteerism, attributes that the First Lady herself has devoted herself to in the public arena. This position is funded within existing resources at OPR. I know a lot of you are talking about this bill. We get this out January. If you have second thoughts, you can think about it again. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions. Oh, Mr. DeVore.
Madam Speaker and members, I rise in opposition to this measure. First of all, this measure properly belonged in the previous session that ended at midnight on August 31st, several weeks ago. This measure has nothing to do with the budget, which is, as of today, 100 days late. It does increase additional cost pressures of $150,000 to pay for the salary of this new cabinet position. And this legislature has had the opportunity to take up legislation like this in this current session and declined. And so while I certainly appreciate that the spouse of our governor has a priority for this measure, I fail to see how that impacts this body and the deliberations that we've had for, the past 15 or 16 hours or so, because this bill has nothing to do with the budget. It has nothing to do with taxes. It's not an urgency measure. And under our Constitution, it has no place being discussed here this evening. And for those reasons, I would urge a no vote.
Mr. Jeffries.
Madam Speaker, I rise in support of the bill. I rise, yeah, I know, it's late or early. I rise in support not because I think it belongs here tonight, I rise in support because I introduced this bill in regular session. This body passed this bill in regular session. It died over in the Senate in Senate Approps. There is an existing position of the Secretary of Volunteerism. The position has been filled for a great amount of time. It has no budget impact, which makes it curious that it's here tonight, but that's another story. So the point is, we've supported this body has supported this bill previously. It does not create a new secretary because the secretary's position is already there and already filled. It does not have a cost because it already exists and is already funded. What it does do is it makes the office permanent so that the next governor cannot eliminate the position or the department. It makes it permanent. And we are required under federal obligations receiving the AmeriCorps grants to have a position established, and we have done that. This just simply codifies it, puts it in place, establishes what department it's going to be in, and therefore, with some conflict and mixed emotion, I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Silva.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In Orange County, we had a volunteer that was a volunteer coordinator. We averaged between 300 and 500 people a year at a county of 3 million. We brought in 1996 a paid volunteer coordinator, and we average about 20,000 volunteers a year. That saves the county about $22 million. So I feel that this would go a long way in the state of California. I think it would help some of our budget problems, not solve them, but I think it would be something that we should invest in. I support it.
Mr. Norby.
Madam Chair, I rise in opposition. Before we stick the new governor with a position that they have no control over, let him or her request that of us.
Okay, seeing no further questions or Mr. Tirico.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was undecided on this bill until Mr. Jeffrey spoke, and I'm more than happy to deliver the Senate a message. So I will probably be voting for the measure. I do have a question for the author, however. I'm confused by the bill. As you know, I'm somewhat dim-witted, but this bill says that it would authorize a Secretary of Service and volunteering. My question is if that is a volunteer position or if we will have to pay for the position.
We did not answer
seeing no further questions. Mr. Anderson.
I have a question of the author.
Without objection.
What's the wage that this position will be paid?
The wage is not determined by this legislation.
But what's the wage that is anticipated? We must have some sort of idea. Are we talking about $50,000 a year, $160,000 a year?
There's no fiscal impact on this in that it's within existing funds, so we're not. That's something that's set by the administration. We're not setting the salary.
Earlier, we heard another member state that position's already there and we're codifying it. So what are we paying the person that's there now? Do we know?
I don't know the answer of what we're paying them, but as I said, this is a determination that can be made by the new administration or the current, in terms of what the wage is.
I urge a no vote. If we don't
record.
know how much this position's being paid, we've certainly paid enough people at Bell in that city, and I don't think that we should be paying anybody for volunteerism.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Blumenfield, you may close.
As has been pointed out, the person is probably being paid less than Robert Rizzo. In the spirit of volunteerism, I urge your aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 23. Measure passes. Let me guess, Mr. Nilo, we have bills on call, so we cannot adjourn. Is there something else?
Well, Madam Speaker, I was just noticing that we established the Secretary of Volunteer